All right, quick little settings video for you in case you're just getting started here. First thing you want to do, make sure that you go into Warzone first before you start messing around with any of this. That way you're going to get your full scale of settings. So now that we're inside of Warzone, go up to settings. I'm going to start with controller up here. Um, so aiming input device, if you're playing on controller, make sure this is set to controller. My button layout and stick layout presets are both set to default. Typically, they're going to be set to default. You'd know if you want to change those. My sensitivity, I play on 4:4. I play very low. The lower your sensitivity is, the more aim assist you get, is kind of how it works. So I have those two set pretty low. Simplified controls preset off, low motor strain off, bumper ping off. I do not play with, I don't swap L1R1 and L2R2. But if you do, this is where you're going to turn it on. But some people swap them just because L1 and R1 triggers a little bit faster if you don't have digital tap triggers. Controller vibration, make sure that this is set to off. Same thing with trigger effects, make sure that that's set to off. Dead zone inputs, we're going to expand this. You can test your dead zones just to check and see. You're going to want your left stick minimum and right stick minimum here to be as low as you can get them to be. Ideally, for your right stick that you use to aim, you really don't want this to be anything above about 6. Otherwise, you're going to start killing a little bit of your aim assist. Same thing with the left stick. If you know anything about rotational aim assist, if your character is moving, so if you're moving with your left stick, the more aim assist you're going to get with your right stick. So if you can, keep them lower to about 6, unless you have some really bad stick drift, then turn it up until you get a new controller. So left stick minimum, as low as you can go. Left stick maximum, I have this turned down to 60. Ideally, you want the difference between left stick minimum and left stick maximum to be about 60 here. And what this does is this engages your character moving a little bit quicker. They'll move up to full speed a little bit quicker. This is a percentage right here in this middle area that you see that's not turned red. So the quicker that you can get it to the outside, the faster your character is going to start moving at full speed. Right stick max, make sure that's set all the way up as high as it'll go. Actually, mine was at 99, set it to 100. Left stick trigger and right stick trigger, set both of those to 0, especially if you don't have digital triggers. If you have like the PS4, PS5, or Xbox controller where they're range of motion on L2 and R2, make sure those are set to 0. That way your gun's going to fire as soon as you touch that button. You get a little bit faster response times. And then if you go into aiming here, sensitivity multiplier, these are all set to 1 by default. We're gonna leave those as is unless you feel the need to change them. ADS sense multiplier focus, I have mine turned down to 0.8. You don't want to go any higher than 0.88 with this. They did some testing and they found that once you get above 0.88 for your ADS sense multiplier, you start to lose aim assist on it. Additionally, the lower you go to, the more aim assist you're going to get, but the slower that you're going to move around while you're ADSing, the slower you're going to move your sights around on the screen. Look inversion standard. Aiming advanced settings. So inside of here, ADS transition timing, I have mine set to instant. Some people seem to like gradual. This seems to be the most popular option in gradual. But this is how quickly your ADS sensitivity transitions or how quickly your sensitivity transitions when you're ADSing. I like instant. It seems to flow a little bit better for me. But like I said, a lot of people run gradual, so totally up to you. Third person ADS, corrective type, assist is fine for that unless you're playing third person. Aim response curve, this is an important one. Make sure that this is set to dynamic. So this is going to allow you to spin and rotate much quicker. If you're set to linear, it's going to be very slow when you're spinning around left and right with your right stick on the screen. So make sure this is set to dynamic and this is turned all the way up to 1. And then custom sensitivity per zoom. I do use this, but it's up to you. My ADS multiplier on low zoom, I have turned down to 0.85. Same thing, on low zoom, you're going to break aim assist beyond 0.88. So make sure you're set to 0.88 or lower on this. Start out with my settings if you want, see how it goes from there. And then at 2x zoom, I have this set to 0.9 just because it's a little bit more comfortable as I'm getting used to the low zoom sensitivity multiplier. But no, you're not going to break aim assist at higher zooms. And then for the snipers, I have these turned up to 0.5 when you're zoomed in, or excuse me, 1.5 for the rest of these ones down here, these last four. When you're zoomed in at high zooms, you move around the screen a lot slower. So these are really for the snipers. It makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of flick around, move up and down, move left and right, and track somebody. This is just what I found to be comfortable. But if you wanted to play around with these a little bit, you can. So going back, target aim assist that and ADS aim assist, those are on by default. Make sure they're both turned on. This is your bread and butter here if you're playing on controller. Motion sensor behavior turned off. And then for some reason they hide this setting in here, but if even though this is motion sensor behavior is turned off, we still need to go into motion sensor advanced settings. And the only one we're going to change in here, FOV sensitivity scaling, make sure that this is turned on. As you increase your field of view, your ADS sensitivity is going to change, and you're going to lose aim assist at higher FOV if this isn't turned on. So make sure that this one's turned on. All right, that's the only one we're changing inside of there. So we're going to go back, go to movement. I use tactical sprint assist. This makes you move around a lot quicker on controller. You feel like you're riding around on roller skates. It's a ton of fun. So tactical sprint assist is selected here. And then you hit show more. Sprint assist delay, we're going to turn that all the way down to 0. And then sprint assist sideways and backwards, make sure we're going to have those turned on. It's going to give you the omni movement thing that they have in this game. Then mantle assist, we're going to make sure that's turned off. We don't need to show more here. Doesn't apply since mantle assist is turned off. Crouch assist, we're going to turn that on. And then you're going to hit show more. Crouch assist tactical sprint, we're going to turn that off. Okay. What that's going to do is this is going to allow you to crouch and move right through windows rather than getting your dick stuck on them if you're anything like me. Corner slice right here. This one we're going to turn on. That's where your character starts leaning when he's coming around corners. Slide dive behavior. So a couple of options for this one. I have mine set to slide only, or the other option that you would probably choose here is going to be tap to slide. The reason I have slide only selected is because if you're on tap to slide, that means that you tap to slide, hold to dive. If you're set to that, there's going to be a short delay when you're using tap to slide. There's like a fraction of a second where when you're tapping your slide button, your character isn't going to slide yet. When you're on slide only, you'll slide immediately, but you can't dive. There's no more dive feature when you set this. That's what I have mine set to. I don't use dive, but if you find yourself using dive a lot, use tap to slide, which means that you'll hold the dive. And then if you're going to do that, your slide to dive activation delay, make sure that that's set to long or at least medium. That way you're not diving somewhere where you're trying to slide. Automatic airborne mantle is locked. Nothing to do there. Sprint, for some reason, this is not letting me scroll down. Hold on. Sprint restore, we're going to turn that on. Slide, maintain sprint on. Parachute, automatic parachute off. Mantle cancels reload, we're going to turn that off. And then movement advanced settings right down here. We're going to open this guy up. I don't believe you're going to change. Plunging underwater, make sure that this is set to free, and sprinting DoorDash is turned on. I believe plunging underwater is set to trigger by default. Make sure you set that to free. It'll allow you to move a little bit easier underwater. Vehicle behaviors, doesn't matter. They're all set to default by normal. You're good. So going back and going over to combat settings here now. ADS hold, tactical stance behavior. I have mine set to on toggle. So that means that it's going to, if I'm using tactical stance, that's going to stay on for that weapon until I turn it off. Tactical stance activation, ADS plus down button. Weapon mount activation. So by default, this is set to ADS plus melee. I use double tap ADS to weapon mount because I found that I was accidentally tapping R3, which is my melee button, and I was accidentally mounting my weapon on the corner of walls and stuff, and it was screwing up my aim. So if I set it to double tap ADS, it takes that problem away from me, but that's just a preference. The dedicated melee weapon activation, make sure that this is set to hold melee and not weapon cycle. So if you want to pull out your knife while you're running, hold down melee. You don't want weapon cycle, otherwise you'll find yourself pulling out your knife on accident rather than your SMG. Prioritize finishing move. Armor plate behavior, apply all. C4 detonation all at once. Equipment behavior, hold. Manual fire behavior, make sure that this is set to press and not hold. If it's set to hold, you're going to lose some reaction time there, so make sure that that's set to press. Combat advanced settings, let's go ahead and open this one up. Interact reload behavior, you have a couple of options here. I have mine set to prioritize reload. What's most natural for people playing on controller is probably prioritize interact, but you'll just have to figure out what works best for you. You can use tap to reload, which means that you'll tap to reload, hold to interact. Interact is when you're picking stuff up or jumping on a zip line. But I have mine set to prioritize reload because I'd rather reload a little bit faster than spend a little more time picking stuff up. That's just my choice. Sprint cancels reload. Make sure that you turn this off. This one's important. It's turned on by default. Turn it off. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself tripping over yourself. Akimbo behavior, independent, ADS stick swap off. Depleted ammo switch, I have mine turned on. It just changes weapons for me when I run out of ammo. So going back, that's it for, I believe that's it for controller. Overlay advanced settings. Yep. Yeah, you're good. You're good there on controller. So now let's go over to graphics. Display. First one that selects. So it's not going to show up in here for me, but you're going to want to use full screen exclusive. That's going to give you the best frames. It doesn't show up for me because I'm screen capturing right now, but full screen exclusive. Obviously, make sure you have the right monitor selected, and make sure that the display adapter, make sure that this says your GPU. For mine are locked right now because I'm on full screen borderless, but if you're on full screen, when you switch to full screen exclusive, these will be selected. Make sure your screen refresh rate is either set to auto or the maximum refresh rate for your screen. And then for display resolution, make sure that that's set correctly. If you're running 1440p, it should look something a little bit like mine. If you're running 1080p, this will say by 1080 rather than 1440. Aspect ratio, automatic. Restart shaders preloading. Don't click this one yet. We're going to come back to this. Don't end the video early. If you're going to end, go to the last 60 seconds. Come back, take a look at this. We're going to have to come back to this later. Display gamma, 2.2. Gamma brightness. I have mine cranked pretty far up because I have the brightness on my monitor turned down a little bit. But you're going to want to run this at least 52, 53 at a minimum. Probably start around 60, see where it goes. But if you're turning it up a little bit, it'll help you see some of the stuff that's in the shadows. Then NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency. Right now, on plus boost seems to be the way to go. Technically, they say if you're CPU bound, you should be running on plus boost. If you're GPU bound, you're supposed to be running on. I'm actually GPU bound, but I'm running on plus boost. It seems to be working the best. I'll talk a little bit more about CPU and GPU bound, which is up here in the top left-hand corner in a minute. I'll get to that in a second. But on plus boost seems to be the way to go. Don't worry about eco mode preset. That'll change. VSync off. VSync off. Custom frame rate limit. I have mine set to custom. And when I hit show more, I have mine set to 167, which is 3 frames lower than what my monitor is capable of. So my monitor is 170 hertz. You're going to want to set this to 3 frames lower than what your monitor says is best for, or is your maximum refresh rate. Evidently, it's a little bit less taxing on the system, and it helps reduce any input lag. So mine are capped out at 3 less. So if your refresh rate is 144, set this to 141, whatever your refresh rate is on here. If you have a weaker system or a little bit older and it's having some trouble running the game, turn down your menu frame rate limit and maybe even your out of focus frame rate limit. That'll save you some frames elsewhere, which will be nice. But if you got a newer system, don't worry about those. native for reduced menu render resolution, pause game rendering off, reduce quality when active. I have mine set to 10 minutes. Focus mode I have set to 0, and HDR, make sure you have that turned off. So good there. Going over to quality now. Graphics preset, don't worry about that one for now. Render resolution, start at 100. I have mine turned up to 110. Actually, I'm literally about to turn it back down to 100 right now. 100 seems to be the sweet spot. Render resolution is how far out your map renders on your screen. Anything above this is very taxing on your system, especially anything above 100. I would leave it there, if not a little bit lower, if your system is a little bit older. Dynamic resolution, we're going to turn that off. You don't need to show more here. Don't worry about that. Upscale sharpening, we're going to set this to Fidelity FX CAS. If you're running on a newer system, you'll have this. If you're running on an older system, you might have to play around with some of these a little bit, but this just upscales the graphics to make it look a little bit nicer, help out with your frames. So Fidelity FX CAS, and then show more. FX CAS strength, we're going to set that to 85. Okay. VRAM scale target, I have mine set to 85 because I have a lot of RAM. If you're running like 16 or lower on your RAM, at a maximum, set this to 80. If you have 32 gigabytes or more, try this out at 85. If you're getting any stutters in your game while you're playing, this is the cause of it. So if you're getting stutters, turn this down a couple, 1 or 2, until you're no longer getting any stutters. So that'll help you a little bit. And then variable rate shading, we're going to turn that off. Texture resolution. So I'm just going to read these off real quick here. So starting with texture resolution, normal, normal, off, low, very low, on, off, high, optimized for on-demand texture streaming. We're going to hit show more. Turn the texture cache size all the way down to 16. That's as low as it'll go. And turn your download limits off. And then local texture streaming quality, we're going to set that to low. So in the bottom here, shadow quality, this is the only one on the bottom part that we're going to turn up a little bit. We're going to make this normal. It's going to help you out seeing shadows a little bit better. And then the rest of these ones down here, they're either off or low. We're going to turn all these all the way down. So off, 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 low, off, low, off, off, off. These are just extra taxing things on your game that make it look a little bit prettier in some cases, but most cases you're barely going to even notice it. These graphics that I have set here are for performance, not necessarily for quality. So we're going to try and help you get the most frames. If you're finding that you're not getting your target frame rate, or you're coming in a little bit lower, texture resolution and texture filter anisotropic, these are two that you could turn down to low or very low to help save some on your system. Same thing with shader quality. You could turn this one down a little bit as well too. But these are just a couple of things that help the game look just a little bit nicer because we're turning down all the quality settings. These just don't have as much tax on your system. But if you're finding that you're below your frame rate, try those three: texture resolution, texture filter anisotropic, and shader quality. So then going to view. So you'll hit apply here when this box pops up because we made some changes. So confirm. So now inside of view, motion reduction preset, we're going to turn that off. Field of view, if you're playing on controller, I'm going to suggest 116. Some people did some testing a few CODs ago, and they said that at 117 and above, if you're on controller, you start to lose aim assist. I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think some people might have disproved it, but for me, it's just a thought in the back of my mind, so I have it set to 116. If you're playing on keyboard and mouse, turn that all the way up to 120. Field of view affected, wide, 90, vehicle field of view wide. And then these are all the motion blur stuff. These are all off or at least 50%. So off, least 50, least 50. Third person ADS transition, have that set to first person ADS in case you're playing any third person games. And then inverted flashbang, turn that on. It just turns your screen black rather than white when a flashbang goes off. Helps save your eyes a little bit. So then let's go to audio. So over here in the audio tab, My master game volume is turned down just a little bit because I like my eardrums. My gameplay music volume and cinematic music volume, I have those turned all the way off. I don't need the music. I can do without it. Dialogue volume, I have that turned down a little bit to 50. I can still hear characters talking, but it's kind of a nuisance. Effects, I have that turned down to 80. Save your eardrums. Audio device, make sure that you specifically select your headset in here rather than the default system device. Your default system device is probably not even your headset, so make sure that this is set to your actual headset. Enhanced headphone mode, we're going to turn that on. And then enhanced headphone mode configuration, there's nothing that you need to do here unless you're a loser and you feel the need to go in and buy the paid audio inside of Call of Duty. If you feel the need to do that, just leave the server. Do me a favor. Thank you. And then under global audio mix, set that to Treyarch mix. Mono audio, we're going to turn that off. Mute game when minimized off. Mute license off. Asymmetrical hearing off. And then configure frequency intensity. Let's go into here. So you're going to go inside of your left ear and right ear frequencies and make them both match this one that you see right here. They did some testing and some people found that this is what's going to optimize your sound for footsteps. So footsteps are the loudest. Everything else is the quietest at this frequency. So 50, 35, 35, 35, negative 30, negative 30, 50, 50. And then you'll do the same thing for right channel frequency. You're just going to duplicate that. 50, 35, 35, 35, negative 30, negative 30, 50, 50. So same thing, left ear and right ear. Make sure you do them both. Reduce whatever the hell that word is, sound, turn that on, save your eardrums. And then hit marker preset. I've always had mine set to classic just because I like the way that the classic hit markers sound. It takes me back to my childhood, but doesn't matter here. Whatever you want to do, as long as one of them are turned on, that way you know you're hitting somebody when you're shooting. And then voice chat. This is your in-game voice chat. So this is separate from Discord if you're playing on PC. This is your people on your team if they're talking in-game. This is how loud you can hear them. I have mine turned down a little bit. 36 is my sweet spot. Voice chat, I have mine turned on. Proximity chat and body shield chat are turned off, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Last words chat, I have that turned on. So my game voice channel, I have set to party only. So if you want, you can set it to all lobby, and that'll activate proximity chat and body shield chat. I just don't like being able to hear everybody else in the lobby. It's annoying and kind of a nuisance. I'd rather hear footsteps than other people talking. So I just have mine set to party only. So that's just you'll only be able to communicate with people that are on your squad, even if you have random fills inside of your game. So I run party only. Totally up to you. Voice chat output device, same thing. Make sure that this is set to your headset, just like it is in the other one. Don't set it to your default system device. So set it to your specifically to your headset that you're listening on. Microphone volume, play around with that a little bit. Find a sweet spot if you need to. You can test the microphone here. Microphone mode, I have mine set to push to talk. So if I'm going to talk in game, I have to press a button on my keyboard or push a button on my foot pedal. And I have a button assigned to it. This way I'm not always talking in game. So if you have this set to open mic and you have your game voice channel set to all lobby, if you're playing on PC, that means that every time you're talking, everybody in the lobby can hear you on proximity chat. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want everybody in the lobby to hear you and know that you're nearby. And then a microphone input device, same thing as a headset. Make sure you specifically select your microphone, not default system device. Find your right microphone and select it. Make sure that that's in there. And then interface under global. First one up here. Off, controller, off, on, off, off. Telemetry, if you hit show more here, these first three you want to have on. FPS counter, server latency, and packet loss. FPS counter is going to show your frames up here in the top left. That's pretty important. That's going to tell you how smooth your game is running. Server latency and packet loss are only going to show up when they're happening. So that way, if you feel like you're lagging, check up in the top, look, see if you have server latency or packet loss. If you do, that means that it has more to do with the game and you being connected to it. If you feel like you're lagging and these two aren't selected, you need to go in and lower some of your settings inside of the display. One of those three things that we talked about. And then the only other two that I have turned on is GPU time and CPU time. And I have these two turned on because it shows the response times for my GPU and my CPU. So since this shows that my GPU time is a little bit higher than my CPU time, this means that I'm GPU bound. So that means that my CPU is better than my GPU. It's running faster. You're very likely going to be GPU bound in this game because it's GPU heavy, but I would suggest turning those on and keeping an eye on them just so you can see if you're GPU or CPU bound. And then at a later date, as you start to change some of your settings, that'll give you an idea for what you need to turn down and what you can turn up. So there are some things that are going to add a load to your CPU. There are some visual settings that are going to add load to your GPU. So, depending on if you're GPU bound or CPU bound, this will give you an idea. So the rest of those I have turned off except for GPU and CPU time. So network in-game alerts and hardware in-game alerts, make sure both those are turned on. That way you see a little notification in the top of the screen when something's going wrong. Readability, I have my subtitles all turned off. I don't need them on. They're just distracting. Default, 0. Menu size, default. Now, color customization inside of here, I do change some things. My HUD color palette, I have set to Triptantopia. It seems to be kind of the brightest on the screen. It looks the nicest. I don't change any of these outside of that. You can change your squad member colors, but honestly, I would suggest setting it to Triptantopia and leaving all of these set to default. This way, everybody can call out the same colors. So squad member 1 is the same color for everybody. So that'll help you out a little bit with call outs. And then color filter, I found color filter 2 to be the best inside of here. And color filter 2, if you go down to color filter target, change it to both. So it'll apply the color filter 2 to both the world that you're looking at and the interface. And that'll make the game look a little bit brighter and highlight characters a little bit better. This is what's worked for me the best. I suggest giving it a try and turn your color intensity on both these all the way up to 100. So going back here, gameplay HUD out of bounds. So I drag mine in a little bit. So essentially this corner that you see right here up in the top left, that's where your mini map is going to sit. So the further that I drag these in, the closer to the center of the screen your mini map is going to sit. And same thing with your ammo and the team member stuff, your squad mates and stuff. I like bringing this in just a little bit because this way I don't have to look as far to see the mini map showing up at the top. Mini map set to square, rotation on, radar off, horizontal, never disappear, on, full name, crosshair set to static, on, and then all these set to 100 by default. We're going to leave those there. So last thing, now that you have all your settings changed, you need to go back into graphics, go into display, and right here, restart shaders preloading. You're going to hit this, and then you're going to hit restart right here. After you do this, you need to restart your game. None of your settings are going to kick in until you hit restart here and then restart your game. After you restart your game, go back into Warzone, and up in the top here, you're going to see a little thing. It says shaders preloading. Make sure that fully completes and that goes away before you join a party or before you go into a game. Otherwise, none of your settings are going to take place and kick in. So make sure that goes away. So that's about all I have for you. Good luck. I'm sure we'll make some updates to this later.